Two, one. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our ALS United Mid-Atlantic Goals podcast. My name is Tony Heil with ALS United Mid-Atlantic, and if you've listened to recent episodes of our podcast, you know that we have talked with people from various perspectives when it comes to ALS, from those who are living with ALS, to researchers and doctors, to other people working in the scientific fields, advocates, people who've lost someone to ALS or they're a caregiver themselves, and also to our staff and anyone that has something to say about our fight against ALS and what you can do about it. Today I'm happy to talk with my new friend Doug Yocum. Doug lives in the Philadelphia area. He is living with ALS, and he's been very involved, especially recently, with some awareness events. We were at Philadelphia City Council for a proclamation for ALS Awareness Month. He spoke at our Jefferson Weinberg open house to talk about research. And he was recently at the Gehrig Day ALS Awareness Night with the Philadelphia Phillies. So we have a lot to say, a lot to talk about. Doug, thanks for talking today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Great. Well, here for you is at your house. I want to know a little bit about yourself and your background. So we talked a little bit. Tell me about, what your first symptoms were when it came to ALS.
Yeah, I first noticed some weakness in my left ankle, and this was probably early 2023. It was just just some weakness when I was walking. I started to notice that I wasn't able to walk quite as far distances as I was used to, and I thought for the longest time that it was just like an unhealed injury or something like that. So I really let it go for months before I finally started talking to my primary care physician about it. And he sort of agreed that it sounded like it might have been like a muscle strain or something like that. So he referred me to sports medicine. But I must have just lucked out that I ended up seeing a doctor who right away suspected something neurological. I know a lot of people struggle with getting a diagnosis. It can take, for some people, it can take months at a time. But I was lucky enough that this doctor really just suspected something neurological, got me in for an EMG, and within weeks I had the diagnosis. So of course it's never lucky to be diagnosed with ALS, but it can be a struggle. I know for some people for months, not knowing what's going on, but I was diagnosed quite quickly. So I got my diagnosis in September of 2023, and within about 6 months, by about March or April of 2024, I largely was not walking at all anymore. So it was a pretty quick progression for me. Anytime I was out of the house, I needed a wheelchair. I was able to take a couple steps around the house, but I largely needed a wheelchair. And then I would say it was right around Thanksgiving of 2024, I lost the ability to stand at all. So from the time of diagnosis, it was a pretty quick progression for me.
And with the struggling with walking, and because it doesn't happen all at once, it's a little bit here and there where it gets harder and harder. Were you experiencing falls or other dangers that you were aware of?
Yeah, so my progression, of course, ALS progresses differently for different people. My progression largely has been kind of stepwise. So there have been periods where I've had slow progression, but then I've had multiple times where I've just had really steep drop-offs. So for a while, I was experiencing just kind of weakness or not being quite as sure on my feet. But then it was quite sudden when really all of a sudden I just was just having trouble putting one foot in front of another. So I had regular falls, trying to get around the house. I was falling at least once a week. And then, when I had the really big progression was over the week of Thanksgiving in 2024. I went from one day I was able to get myself out of bed and get dressed, get ready. And the next day I woke up and I couldn't stand anymore. So it is wild how it progresses so differently for different people. But Yes, definitely falls. I've had a lot of falls along the way. Um, for months, my shins were constantly banged up and bruised. Um, so that's, one nice thing about being in the wheelchair all the time now is I don't fall anymore. So there's a bright side, I guess.
I appreciate your attitude, and that's very helpful to others. I think with ALS is to know that there's someone with a bright disposition, someone to talk with. But you said that you knew that it's hard to get diagnosed with a disease like ALS. Did you know that at the time? Did you know anything about ALS when you were first experiencing symptoms, or when you were diagnosed about some of those challenges?
No, I knew very, very little about ALS. It was not it wasn't even on my mind. I had not even considered, in when I was having early symptoms, I had not even considered that this would be something neurological. So it was completely off my radar. When I went in for the EMG, and the EMG is a test where they basically take a needle connected to a sensor, and kind of stick it into different muscles and listen to the nerves. I think they can translate the nerve activity into readable signals. I really thought that we were just kind of looking for something like musculoskeletal, and we were just doing this test to rule things out. Um, and then as soon as the doctor mentioned, I think this is neurological. And at when they finished that test, they said, I can't make this diagnosis 100%, but this really looks like ALS to me. And I really didn't know what that meant. I could tell from um, the atmosphere in the room that it was really bad. Um, so there was an electrodiagnostician, there was a physical therapist, a sports medicine doctor. There are quite a few people in the room, um, and I will say, as the test went on, I could kind of sense the mood in the room shifting. I think as they started to realize what they were seeing, I of course had no idea what it was that they were seeing, but I could sense the mood in the room changing. And when they said, I think this could be ALS, I just didn't know what that meant. I I I think I had heard of ALS. I had heard of the Ice Bucket Challenge, but I really didn't know what that meant. Um, I didn't realize the gravity of the diagnosis. So I went home,
Mm-hmm.
I got online, and of course the first thing I saw was, the mortality rates, and they're not great. Um, and it was kind of awful to find out that way. Going home from the doctor's office, hopping on Google, and finding out that I had just been diagnosed with a terminal disease. So since then, of course, I've learned quite a bit about it, from reading about it, and also, of course, from living it. Um, but yeah, I don't think that there is enough awareness of this disease. I knew it was serious, but I really didn't know the full gravity of what this was when I was diagnosed.
And I imagine some of the challenges we have with ALS awareness for someone like you is until you need to experience it, you're not looking for it, right? Like a regular person's not actively looking for information about ALS. If I see a TV ad for a drug
Yeah.
that has nothing to do with anyone in my family, I tune it out. So it's hard to get that information out because it's not something people think about day to day.
Exactly. Like I said, it was nowhere on my radar. I had going in to see my doctor, going in to see the diagnostic doctor for the EMG. It wasn't on my radar. I had no idea. I had no idea that this was even something we were looking for. So you're right. It's a rare disease. Most people never need to know about it. So I don't think that there's a tremendous amount of awareness out there.
Now, one group of people that is very aware and knowledgeable is the team at the Jefferson Weinberg ALS Center in Philadelphia. We partner with them for ALS care and research and have for a few years now. And they're very good experts on these issues and leading some research. So, what's your experience been like with the team at the Jefferson Weinberg ALS Center?
It's been phenomenal. I've said to my family and my friends, I didn't know that medical care like this existed. It is so patient focused. It's so person focused. When I go to my clinic days, so generally you usually go to clinic once every 3 months. It's like going and seeing friends, honestly. And so, a typical day at clinic, you'll see a neurologist, rehabilitative medicine, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, uh, a dietitian, respiratory. So you see a whole bunch of clinicians, a whole bunch of specialists in one day, and they do such an amazing job making me feel um, like they are there to really make my life better. Um, they, they they would do anything for me. Um, and it's just meant so much to me to have them on my side going through this. Um, I typically will take a friend with me when I have a clinic day. So a typical clinic visit can be anywhere from an hour and a half up to 3 hours, just sort of depending on what sorts of things we're talking about, um, how many other patients are there. Um, so I typically will bring a friend with me, and I've had multiple friends comment to me just how how incredible it is. They agree with me. They've never seen patient-centered care like what they see at Jefferson. So they really have been a godsend, helping me through this process. And it's not just this one day every 3 months. They check in on me periodically. I get texts and emails from the clinicians just checking in periodically to see how I'm doing. Do I need anything? Is there any equipment that I could use? Is there anything that they could do to make my life more comfortable? So I really am I'm so grateful for the care that I received there.
And speaking of friends, you have a lot of friends that have been joining you at events. How have your friends been supportive of you through this journey with ALS?
You're right. I have just a tremendous group of friends who have been there right from the beginning. You know, everyone that I told, as I kind of came to grips with my diagnosis and started sharing it with my friends, um, the first thing everybody said to me was, "Whatever you need, just let me know, and I will be there for you." This is not a disease that you can fight on your own. It takes over your body. Um, you know, I it started with my legs. Once I lost the ability to walk, then it kind of moved up to my arms. So at this point, I need help getting into bed every evening. I need help getting my groceries into the apartment and put away, things like that. Um, and of course, you can hire help, but in-home care is extraordinarily expensive. So there's just a limited number of hours that I'm able to pay for. And that's something that I think a lot of people find surprising that insurance does not cover in-home care. That is something that is 100% out of pocket, and it's very, very expensive. So I do have an aide who's with me for a couple hours in the morning. But aside from that, I have largely depended on my friends to help me, and they've done so very much, like very selflessly. Everybody has been so generous with their time and their energy. So I have a rotation of friends that come over every single night to put me to bed. I've got friends who come and I get my groceries delivered to the lobby downstairs. I live in an apartment building, but I need a friend here to bring the groceries up and put them away. My friends have also uh, been really flexible in terms of where we hang out. So it's very difficult for me to get out of the apartment. My friends have said, we're happy to come over and hang out at your place as often as you want to. So there's rarely a day that goes by where I don't have at least one or two friends coming over to visit me. Um, and it's done so much to make me still feel like I am engaged with engage with my friends, engage with my community. I think that this would be a lot harder if I were isolated, if I were stuck at home and nobody was coming around to see me. But fortunately, that has not been an issue. I think, to be honest, I probably see my friends more now that I'm sick. That's I've said that to a couple of my friends that if I were to look for, another silver lining to this diagnosis, it has been that it has truly strengthened my friendships. It's strengthened those relationships because um, as soon as I needed my friends, um, they were there, and they were there without reservation. So I'm so grateful, and I would not have been able to get through this without the support of my friends and family.
That's really nice to hear. I think we need some positive stories in this world about human connection and friendship. And, as you were talking about the importance of home care, I'd like to remind people that we have the Howard I. Abrams in home care program. You can support that at alsmidatlantic.org with your donations and advocacy. And the more we're able to raise for that at alsmidatlantic.org, the more hours and other support we can provide. And going back to your story, Doug, you're only in your 30s, right? So you're a younger man with ALS, and there are a lot of things to help people who are older with different diseases. So when you're younger and having a network of young friends, that is extra important for someone like you.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. When it comes to chronic conditions, um, our social welfare systems are generally set up to support older people. When you receive a diagnosis like this at a younger age, it's really hard to kind of wrap your head around it. The idea of having to potentially stop working, go out on disability, go on to Medicare, eventually going on to Medicaid to try to help cover some of the expenses. Um, I mean, that's something that I know is likely in my near future is that I will have to stop working, um, and when that happens, the cost of in-home care would likely consume all of my assets within a year to 2 years. And so you really have to rely on family and friends, and then of course eventually you do have to rely on like social welfare programs, um, because generally speaking, the health insurance is not set up to support chronic conditions like this.
Well, and of course, for anyone listening, don't wait to rely on the services from ALS United Mid Atlantic as well. Ask your social workers and nurses. I know, Doug, you're friends with our nurse, Gail Houseman, who's
Of
done our
course,
podcast. You're friends with some of our social workers like Melissa and Ann, I believe. So you know when you reach out to us and to the team at Jefferson, you're not getting an AI chatbot. You're not just getting a computer form. It makes a big difference talking to a real person.
yeah, yeah, and you make a good point. Don't wait. What one of the mistakes that I made was not being proactive enough to get out ahead of the disease. I had bought a house at the end of 2021, and I was just so emotionally attached to that house, but I waited too long, and I suddenly found myself in a position where uh, I couldn't take care of the house. I couldn't get up the stairs. Um, it was not a suitable living condition. Um, so I was really having to play catch up to, get the house on the market, get it sold, get into a more sustainable living situation, get in home care. So you're right. You can't wait. You have to talk with your social workers, talk with your doctors, and believe them when they tell you you need to do these things. I kind of thought, oh, I'm 36, I'm 37 years old. I still have the fight left in me. I have fight left in me from I think an emotional standpoint, but when the disease takes away your ability to walk, um, you need to have steps put in place. You need to have a suitable living space, and you need to have the services lined up. So you're absolutely right. Don't wait. If you're affected by this disease, get out ahead of it.
And you have been involved in other ways, including with supporting research and advocacy. We were together at City Hall in Philadelphia for ALS Awareness Month, which was very nice and positive. And you also spoke at the research event at the Jefferson Weinberg Center. You and I talked about how important it is to support things like ACT for ALS and expanded access for clinical trials. Tell me about how important research is and why people should support greater funding and this bill.
Yeah, for sure. There is no known cure for this disease right now, and not even just a cure. There are very few known therapies. There are right now there are only I believe there are only two drugs on the market for sporadic or non-genetic ALS. So my form of ALS is non-genetic. So there are really only two drugs that are FDA approved. But there is a ton of research going on looking at other potential pharmaceutical therapies and the use of supplements to help at least slow down the progression. And so it's just enormously important to support that research with funding, but then also for people to step up and take part in that research. So I'm currently enrolled in an expanded access program. Expanded access programs are they're not exactly the same as a drug trial. Generally, they are drugs that are currently being studied, but if for any reason you don't qualify for the study, either all the slots were full, or if you have been diagnosed too long ago, a lot of times these studies have a cutoff in terms of how long into your diagnosis you can be. So if for some reason you're not able to participate in the study officially, a lot of times the manufacturers will still provide you with the drug as part of an expanded access program. So essentially, it's just kind of expanding their research, but you're not officially part of the trial. So I am part of the expanded access program for a drug called pridopidine, which is largely focused on delaying bulbar onset. The onset of symptoms affecting the neck region, so like speech and swallowing. Um, so I take that drug and I give I report side effects. I report how how my progression is going. Um, Once a week, I have an app that I kind of read a few sentences, and so it keeps track of how my speech is progressing. So it's extraordinarily important for people to take part, or to be able to take part in these trials and in these expanded access programs to get data back to these researchers. Because as I mentioned, there are so few available medications and treatments and therapies. And the only way we can get more therapies out there is by funding that research and then participating in those trials to get the data back to those researchers.
We really appreciate you being involved in research because, however it helps you, that information, good, bad, and indifferent, uh, ends up helping future research. So everyone that participates leads to better treatments and ideas and therapies. Now, one group of people that have been participating in the fight against ALS and supporting the efforts to strike out ALS are the Philadelphia Phillies. And this past week, you were there at the ALS Awareness Night for Lou Gehrig Day with the Phillies. It was one of the most exciting games that I've ever seen in any sport live, because it ended up in extra innings with the Phillies winning in the
Right.
11th inning. So, spoiler alert if you haven't seen. But, Doug, tell me about your experience and what it was like being part of our ALS Awareness Day with the Phillies.
It was an extraordinary experience. So I not only got to go to the game, I also participated in the on-field ceremony ahead of the game. I took one of my friends with me, and we kind of we went. I didn't know exactly what to expect, but we got into the stadium. They took us down into the bowels of the stadium. We're going through these tunnels, and then we come through this door, and all of a sudden we were right down there on the field. So I got to go out on the field. Um, It was on television. They read, I think there were five of us down there. And so they, right in the stadium, they read, just some short introductory statements about each one of us. They showed like a short film in the stadium about Lou Gehrig, um, what he meant to the game and what he now kind of means to the disease, being like a public face to the disease. And so really bringing awareness to the disease and to the people that are impacted by it. Um, uh, and then I got to meet some of the players. I shook hands with players down on the field, met some of the Phillies management. And then once the ceremony was over, they took us upstairs, and they had, just incredible accommodations for us. A place for us to sit with our friends, caretakers, other people with ALS. There were people from ALS United. There were people from the Jefferson Clinic. So we were all able to sit together, eat some food, drink some beer, watch the game. Of course, they brought the Philly Fanatic up to see us. So I got to do a little bit of dancing with the Fanatic. I mean, it was an incredible evening. And I got a signed hat. They gave us grab bags, and I just happened to get a hat signed by Castellanos. So really was truly an incredible evening. I'm so grateful to the Phillies for really making us feel not just welcome, but they really did a great job of making us feel like we were truly valued. And I think that's really incredible advocacy. Um, I think I saw that they raised something like $800,000 um, uh, for ALS research and advocacy and patient services. Um, I know over the decades, the Phillies have raised an incredible amount of money, which is so needed, so helpful. So I really am grateful to the Phillies for doing such a great job.
Yeah, and as a Philadelphia resident and fan, and you meet with others at the clinics and other places, uh, what is it like knowing that you have this team that, like you said, you met the staff, you met the people from the management and others there, that it's not just that they write a check or they ask people to donate, but it's like in their blood that they support this and have since 1984. Uh, I'm always impressed. I've been here for many years now that the support for ALS is at the core of what the Phillies do, and you can even see in the how accessible the building is compared to
For
some other
sure.
places in this world. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, as a Philadelphian, does it fill you with a sense of pride and appreciation?
Oh, absolutely. I grew up. I didn't grow up quite in the city, but I grew up in the area. So I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia. So I consider myself a lifelong Philadelphian. But exactly as you said, they're not just writing a check and saying, look, we did it, move on to the next thing. This is a long-term commitment to creating awareness around ALS and to making the lives of people with ALS better. So it does fill me with pride. I'm very happy to be able to call this my home team, and I just think it's an extraordinary thing that they do.
Yeah, we obviously agree. We're really grateful to the Phillies, their fans, the sponsors, and everyone that's involved. And so that's a really fun event. And we have a lot of other fun events like our annual celebration, Help and Hope, and our walks. So, Doug, as someone living with ALS, let's finish here. But why would you ask or recommend people join an ALS United event so that they can support our cause?
I've been fortunate enough to go to a number of ALS United events. So I went to last year's Help and Hope Symposium. I went to the luncheon at Longwood Gardens. This Phillies game that we had this week. I would just say it is such a positive experience to be able to attend these events. Everybody there is so friendly and compassionate and committed to creating awareness around ALS and committed to improving the lives of people living with ALS or people whose lives are impacted by ALS. It's just such it's such a friendly environment. You can't go to one of these things and not have fun. You can't go and not feel loved and supported. So if you are impacted by ALS, you should absolutely get involved. Attend these events. Meet other people with ALS. Meet other families impacted by ALS. Meet caregivers. Meet clinicians, providers. Everybody is there to help. Everybody is there to make your life better. And so it's just such a tremendous experience to be able to participate in these events and to be supported by these people.
Well, we want to continue to support and make sure that these events are positive for Doug and for everyone else. So if you're interested in joining an event, starting your own event, volunteering, or donating, again, please join us at alsmidatlantic.org. That's alsmidatlantic.org. And follow us on social media on all our channels at ALS Mid-Atlantic so you can see the updates about upcoming events, or you want to suggest something yourself. As we end here today, I want to encourage you to subscribe to this podcast on Spotify and iTunes and on our YouTube page. Love to hear your recommendations. Leave a review, a comment. Tell us what you want to hear about, because our job is not to tell you about ALS alone. Our job is to listen. And so if you have things you want to be educated on or bring more awareness to, we want to do that for you. So again, subscribe, comment, learn more at alsmidatlantic.org. Doug, thanks so much. I'm really excited we got to work together, and I can't wait to see you at another event soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Tony.
Great. This is our ALS United Mid-Atlantic Goals podcast. Our goal is to support people like Doug and others who are living with ALS here in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. You can help make that happen. Join us at alsmidatlantic.org. Thank you so much. All right.